Good morning. I knew that I wanted to be a Republican political operative when I was in the 8th grade. Yeah, I was that kid. Oh, slides are all out of whack. Can we get back to the beginning? Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you like them. It's all great. Like I said, I was an 8th grader. I was a pretty nerdy 8th grader with this dream of being a Republican political operative, looking a little bit like this guy. My American government teacher was fired halfway through the school year, and the guy they chose to replace her was a 3-time losing congressional candidate by the name of Mark Sharp. I was fascinated by this guy. I think I was fascinated by his audacity and his failures, a sure foretelling of my future as an entrepreneur. Mark had a quality that most politicians and entrepreneurial people share. He had that "why not me" attitude about him. When confronted with challenges that nobody else wants to take on, people like Mark ask, "Why not me?" Mark tried to instill this quality in myself. When I was a senior in high school, I had my eyes set on attending Florida State University the summer following graduation. And just as I was about to leave, Mark came to me and informed me he was going to make another run for public office, and he wanted me to stay behind and run his campaign. Now, I know this might shock you, but as a 17-year-old high school senior, I was woefully unqualified to run any campaign. But I was, however, arrogant and naive enough to ask, why not me, right? So I stayed and I deferred enrollment to FSU to the fall. And after winning that campaign at the age of 18, I was hooked. I was bound to be a Republican political operative. This was my destiny. I continued on this path through college, interning with numerous campaigns, lawmakers, and in the Bush White House. I started my first campaign, my first company at the age of 23, a consulting practice working with conservative candidates and causes on how to win campaigns online. In 2011, I merged that company with Engage, the Republican digital agency led at the time by Mindy Finn and a longtime friend of the Personal Democracy Forum, Patrick Ruffini. I'm so disappointed Patrick's not here this year, the one year he misses. At Engage, I wore a lot of different hats. So one of my jobs was managing a team of account executives whose job it was to always be moving the needle for our clients online. You know the drill, getting more Facebook likes, getting more email addresses, more Twitter followers, etc. My rockstar team afforded me the opportunity to pick and choose the few clients, I actually wanted to spend a little bit of time working on myself. And one of those projects was the Voting Information Project, an initiative many in this room have either worked on or are very familiar with. One of my roles in this project was working with election officials at the state and local level, selling them on the idea that they should open up their polling place location data set, put it in a uniform format, and then make it freely available to developers through an API. Now, which of these two jobs do you think was more challenging, more intellectually interesting? Getting more Facebook likes for political candidates, or convincing elected officials to open up their data? Now, to be fair, if you ask the Republican digital politicos in this room, if you asked all 8 of them, what it is they want to be doing, they want to be solving the big, intellectually interesting problems facing campaigns today, especially after last fall. But as Sasha Issenberg reminded us yesterday, very few campaigns and committees are willing to invest the resources necessary to make this happen. It can be very, very frustrating. That's creepier than I thought it was going to be. I loved the reminder that Nico presented to us yesterday afternoon when he said, "The greatest minds in my generation are trying to figure out how to get more people to click on ads." And that's true in political campaigns as well. I don't know about you, but I want to be thinking bigger. As an entrepreneurial person, my interest naturally gravitated towards projects like the Voting Information Project. This was solving a real problem, helping more voters find where to go to vote. And it was doing it in a way that had never been done before. And I'm sure others before had dreamed of a day where maybe this data would be more accessible by voters, but the founders of the Voting Information Project asked, why not us? Now, while I was still at Engage, I was approached by a good friend of mine by the name of Tony DeSisto with an idea he had for a Civic startup. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I don't think I had any idea what a Civic startup was at the time. Tony, like me, had been raised in Republican politics. He had worked for John McCain in 2008 and had run for political office himself. But he was much more of a policy wonk than a political operative. As a really bad consolation prize for losing his bid for the Tampa City Council, Tony was appointed to the city's Budget Advisory Committee, where week in, week out, he would see projects come across his desk that were shovel-ready but lacked the necessary funds to complete. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Renovating neighborhood pools, building new parks, and installing new playgrounds. Projects that citizens want today, not 10 years from now, when their municipality might have the budget. As we started exploring this problem, we found evidence that if given the opportunity, citizens would be willing to pay above and beyond what they already pay in taxes for the public projects they cared about most. We saw a huge problem that no one was trying to solve, and an even bigger opportunity to capitalize on solving that problem. Why not us, we asked, and we began working on a solution. We obviously thought we were very, very handsome. In the summer of 2012, we launched Citizinvestor, a crowdfunding and civic engagement platform for local government projects to help solve this problem. We were officially running a civic startup. So just before we launched Citizinvestor, Tony and I made a trip out to Silicon Valley to meet with potential investors, mentors, and people just generally interested in the work we were doing. We had the great honor of meeting with Tim O'Reilly at the Code for America offices. And we had a great conversation with Tim providing a lot of encouragement, a lot of critiques. But my favorite part of the conversation, and the part I will never, ever forget, was when Tim stopped me mid-breath and sat back in his chair and said, "You know what I love about you guys? You're Republicans." The way he said it made us think that we just might be the first Republicans to ever step foot in Code for America. For the first time, I felt all alone as former Republican political operatives running a civic startup. This intrigued me. Why were we some of the only Republican political operatives most people could point to running a civic startup? So in preparation for this talk, I've done some exploring into why this might be. And when I started exploring this, I assumed that while I knew of no other former Republican politicos running civic startups, there were tons of Democrats, former Democrat political operatives running startups in this space. But you know what I found? This simply was not true. There just aren't a lot of former politicos running civic startups, period. So I went to my friends on Facebook and Twitter, and I conducted a very scientific poll of asking them, my former political operative friends, what it is that they love about running campaigns. Here's what they said. They love that campaigns are fast-paced. They love that campaigns are high stakes, and most importantly, they love that campaigns hold the promise to change the world. If these are the things that political operatives love about running campaigns, then we should be seeing many more of them founding civic startups, where the challenges are greater, the market is much larger, and the potential to change the world is real. But I don't think most politicos have a grasp on just how big the problems are facing American cities today. From 2008 to 2011, municipal governments laid off 535,000 government employees. In my hometown of Tampa, in Hillsborough County, the cost per capita of county government services has been reduced 26% from 2007 to 2012. Now more than ever, government is looking for ways to cut costs anywhere it can, providing a real opportunity for civic entrepreneurs. Now, prior to co-founding Citizinvestor, I had no clue how big of a market government technology is. This year alone, there'll be $140 billion spent at the federal, state, and local level just on technology. Now, to put that in perspective, liberal estimates for spending in the 2012 election, from presidential all the way down to local races, total $10 billion. You can do the math of what small percentage went into the pockets of the digital politicos in this room. The civic market perhaps more than any other, is ripe for hungry entrepreneurs to make a lot of money while simultaneously making government cheaper and more efficient at the federal, state, and local level. Finally, I think it's important for civic entrepreneurs like myself and the others on the stage this morning to share with you the companies that are changing the world in this space in order to inspire other political operatives to join us. On a political campaign, you work your heart out for a candidate who promises the change you want, and you pray that once elected, that change is delivered. But when you run a civic startup, you are in control of how you change the world. These companies are changing the world. Popbox is ensuring that the voice of citizens is being heard by Congress. Aunt Bertha is making it easier to find government programs. GovLoop is inspiring public service professionals to better serve their country. ElectNext is opening up political data. Blight Status is providing comprehensive information on blighted properties in New Orleans. And at Citisvestor, we are empowering citizens to invest in and reimagine their community. Jennifer Polka, the Executive Director of Code for America and our newly minted United States Deputy CTO, has said before, by working on a civic startup, you are serving your country. I have a lot of friends who are still political operatives, and I know the unique perspective and work ethic that they bring, a perspective and work ethic that we need to help solve the biggest problems facing American cities today. So my question to every politico and entrepreneur in this room this morning is simple. Why not you? Why don't you start a civic startup? What big problems facing American cities today do you want to take hold of, take control of, and solve? I can't wait to see more of you join us. Thank you.